Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, 5th chapter, text 19, about the incarnation of Godhead, Vyāsadeva. And Vyāsadeva is Krishna. It's an expansion of Krishna that appeared toward the very beginning of the manifestation of the material universe. It's about the 7th generation the incarnation appeared. And he appeared in the administrative class, the ruling class, and he acted in his life in a pastime of being the perfect king. And so he's now retiring from management, and he's going to be showing how to prepare for leaving the material world altogether. Because whatever the Lord does, he shows by his example, and his pure devotees also show by their own example. In other words, the Lord doesn't have to do these things, take up management and then renounce. But he's acting, and then others can see, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, whatever actions a great man performs and whatever standards he sets, all the world pursues. So there's no greater person than Krishna. Whatever actions he performs and whatever standards he sets, the whole world pursues. There's a little bit of a catch in there, though, because Krishna performs extraordinary activities that can't be imitated in his pastimes. So one has to know the difference and actually understand their position in relationship to the Supreme Lord. That although the living entity has the same quality, the spiritual nature, they don't have exactly the same amount of potency as the Lord, because no one's equal to him and no one's greater than him. So sometimes he does things that that just help to distinguish his actual position, so that the tendency is to reduce the Lord to being like a, maybe a really great ordinary person. So he kind of distinguishes himself when he does something super extraordinary. But in this case, with Lord Vyāsadeva, what he's doing here is he's instructing his sons, who will be taking over management, and he's giving them all good instruction about managing, how to manage a society, to see that everyone is engaged according to their God-given talents and abilities, which basically means how they're situated in the modes of material nature, so that they can be peaceful, maintain themselves, be smooth running of society, with the possibility of spiritual advancement, because that's really what it's all about. So this is text 19, and Vyāsadeva is he's speaking as who he is, personality of Godhead incarnated. So Lord Vyāsadeva is speaking. Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani charani, nirvisesa sanyugati, paskitade satarne. My transcendental body, Satchidananda Vigraha, looks exactly like a human form, but it is not a material human form. It is inconceivable. I'm not forced by nature to accept a particular type of body. I take on a body by my own sweet will. My heart is also spiritual, and I always think of the welfare of my devotees. Therefore, within my heart can be found the process of devotional service, which is meant for the devotees. Far from my heart have I abandoned irreligion, adharma, and non-devotional activities. They do not appeal to me. Due to all these transcendental qualities, people generally pray to me as Rishabhdev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the best of all living entities. Prabhupada's commentary. In this verse, the words idam sariram mama durvibhavyam are very significant. Generally, we experience two energies, material energy and spiritual energy. We have some experience of the material energy: earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. Because in the material world, everyone's body is composed of these elements. Within the material body is the spirit soul, but we cannot see it with the material eyes. When we see a body full of spiritual energy, it's very difficult for us to understand how the spiritual energy can have a body. It is said that Lord Rishabhdev's body is completely spiritual. Therefore, for a materialistic person, it's very difficult to understand. For a materialistic person, the completely spiritual body is inconceivable. We have to accept the version of the Vedas when our experimental perception cannot understand a subject. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. The Supreme Lord has a body with form, but that body is not composed of material elements. It's made of spiritual bliss, eternity, and living force. By the inconceivable energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord can appear before us in his original spiritual body. But because we have no experience of the spiritual body, we're sometimes bewildered and see the form of the Lord as material. The Mayavadi philosophers are completely unable to conceive of a spiritual body. They say that the spirit is always impersonal. Whenever they see something personal, they take it for granted that it's material. In the Bhagavad Gita it's said, Avajananti mam mudha manusim tanumasritam parambhavam majananto mamabhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature, my supreme dominion over all that be. Unintelligent people think that the Supreme Lord accepts a body composed of material energy. We can easily understand the material body, but we cannot understand the spiritual body. There is no conception of material existence there. In the spiritual world, there is only service and the receiving of service. There is only sevya, seva, and sevaka. The person served, the process of service, and the servant. These three items are completely spiritual, and therefore the spiritual world is called absolute. There's no tinge of material contamination there. Being completely transcendental, to the material conception. Lord Vyāsadeva states that his heart is composed of Dharma. Dharma is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharmam parityaja mamikam saranam praja. In the spiritual world, every living entity is surrendered to the Supreme Lord and is completely on the spiritual platform. Although there are servitors, the served, and service, all are spiritual and variegated. At the present moment, due to our material conception, everything is durvibhavya, inconceivable. Being the Supreme, the Lord is called Vrishabha, the best. In terms of Vedic language, Nityo Nityanam. We are also spiritual, but we're subordinate. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, is the foremost living entity. The word Vrishabha means the chief, or the supreme, and indicates the Supreme Being, or God Himself. There's no tinge of material contamination there in the spiritual world. That's interesting. All there is person being served, the process of service, and the one who's serving. That's it. So, material world, what there is exploitation. So there's no exploitation in the spiritual world. So that is, sometimes we hear, oh, God is love. So that's what that means. Loving devotional service. That's the kind of service that's in the spiritual world. And that's all that's there. There isn't anything else. But that's everything. It must be a very busy place. And there's unlimited variety of moods of service and unlimited servitors. So it's a very active place. There's a lot going on in the spiritual world. The material world is kind of like a dream state. It's kind of like falling asleep and dreaming in this sleeping state, dreaming that we are the enjoyer. We are the exploiter. And that we're meant to be served through our material senses. It's kind of like a dream, because it has no factual existence. We're spirit, we're not these bodies, minds. In the activity that's inherent in our spiritual nature, aside from the temporary dreamlike state, sleeping state, is be engaged in loving service of the Lord in the spiritual atmosphere and having a really good time. For eternally, no beginning, no end. It's just what's going on in the spiritual world. There's no birth, there's no death, there's no frustration of despair, or, well, actually emotions are there, but they're not materially contaminated emotions. Everything's there in the spiritual world. It's on the platform of spirit, which, like here, says inconceivable at this point. And that's why many people, in order to get relief from the frustrations of the material situation, they are attracted to a kind of impersonal idea of spirit. But there's nothing going on there. There's no form, there's no persons. It's just like a vast source of energy with nothing going on there. In their desperation to get some relief from the material phantasmagoria. But that's not the complete understanding. That's said to be the effulgence, bodily effulgence of the Supreme Being. But beyond that, glaring effulgence, which has kind of a blinding quality to it, like coming out of a really dark place. You can't see anything. You hit with the light. But one adjusts, can adjust to that energy, and can begin to perceive the variegatedness there, the activities there, and the kind of happiness and pleasure that's there in those activities. And that's by the mercy of the Lord and His pure devotees. And like they say, it's not what you know, but who you know. That's the special mercy of the pure devotees. And take shelter of someone who's already situated in that pure devotional energy of the Lord, spiritual energy. And they can impart that to those that hear from them. It's like a heart-to-heart transmission. Text 20. My dear boys, you are all born of my heart, which is the seat of all spiritual qualities. Therefore, you should not be like materialistic and envious men. You should accept your eldest brother, Bharat, who is exalted in devotional service. If you engage yourself in Bharat's service, your service to him will include my service, and you will rule the citizens automatically. Prabhupada's commentary. In this verse, the word hridaya indicates the heart, which is also called ura, the chest. The heart is situated within the chest, and although instrumentally the son is born with the aid of the genitals, he's actually born from within the heart. According to the heart's situation, the semen takes the form of a body. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, when one begets a child, his heart should be purified through a ritualistic ceremony known as Garbhadan. Rishabhadev's heart was always uncontaminated and spiritual. Consequently, all the sons born from the heart of Rishabhadev were spiritually inclined. Nonetheless, Rishabhadev suggested that his eldest son was superior, and he advised the others to serve him. All the brothers of Bharat Maharaj were advised by Rishabhadev to adhere to Bharat's service. The question may be asked why one should be attached to family members, for in the beginning it was advised that one should not be attached to home and family. However, it is also advised that one has to serve the Mahayan, one who is very spiritually advanced. By serving the Mahat, the exalted devotee, one's path for liberation is open. The family of Rishabhadev should not be compared to an ordinary materialistic family. Bharat Maharaj, Rishabhadev's eldest son, was specifically very exalted. For this reason, the other sons were advised to serve him for his pleasure. That was their duty. So, Rishabhadev, they're all his sons, And Bharat Maharaj, the eldest, is the most advanced. He's very advanced in love of Godhead, devotional service. So Vyāsadeva is advising his other sons to take shelter of an advanced devotee, not just because he's the eldest son. He just happens to be the eldest son, but he's also the most advanced. So the main thing there is not because he's the eldest son you take shelter necessarily, but because he's the most advanced spiritually. The Supreme Lord was advising Bharat Maharaj to be the chief ruler of the planet. And this is the real plan of the Supreme Lord. In the Battle of Kurukshetra, we find that Lord Krishna wanted Maharaj Yudhisthira to be the Supreme Emperor of this planet. He never wanted Duryodhana to take the post. As stated in the previous verse, Lord Vrishabhadev's heart is Hridayam Yatra Dharma. The characteristic Dharma is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. Surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To protect Dharma, Paritranaya Sadhunam, the Lord always wants the ruler of the earth to be a devotee. Then everything goes on nicely for the benefit of everyone. As soon as a demon rules the earth, everything becomes chaotic. At the present moment, the world is inclined toward the democratic process, but the people in general are all contaminated by the modes of passion and ignorance. Consequently, they cannot select the right person to head the government. The president is selected by votes of ignorant Sudras, therefore another Sudra is elected, and immediately the entire government becomes polluted. If people strictly followed the principles of Bhagavad Gita, they would elect a person who is the Lord's devotee. Then automatically there would be good government. Vrishabhadeva therefore recommended Bharat Maharaj as the emperor of this planet. Seeing a devotee means serving the Supreme Lord. For a devotee always represents the Lord. When a devotee is in charge, the government is always congenial and beneficial for everyone. So in other places, Srila Prabhupada has stated that according to the Vedas, the monarch type of government is really preferable, where there is a benevolent, pious, preferably Krishna-conscious leader who sees his citizens in the same way he sees his own children, and he has their best interest at heart, their welfare at heart, and he rules in that consciousness. That's really the best situation for everyone, because then that ruler is a representative of the Lord. But here Prabhupada indicates that in this age, the monarch system is out, and the way a ruler is established is by general populace votes. So Prabhupada says the solution is, if the general population can take the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and become Krishna conscious, then they can actually elect a good leader. So Prabhupada very much wanted these books to be made available as far and wide as possible, so that people could have some good intelligence of who to actually elect as their leader. Text 21-22. Of the two energies manifest, spirit and dull matter, beings possessing living force, vegetables, grass, trees, and plants, are superior to dull matter, stone, earth, etc. Superior to non-moving plants and vegetables are worms and snakes, which can move. Superior to worms and snakes are animals that have developed intelligence. And superior to animals are human beings. And superior to human beings are ghosts, because they have no material bodies. Superior to ghosts are the Gandharvas, and superior to them are the Siddhas. Superior to the Siddhas are the Kinnaras, and superior to them are the Asuras. Superior to the Asuras are the demigods, and of the demigods, Indra, the king of heaven, is supreme. Superior to Indra are the direct sons of Lord Brahma, like King Daksha. The supreme among Brahma's sons is Lord Shiva. Since Lord Shiva is the son of Lord Brahma, Shiva is considered superior. But Brahma is also subordinate to me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, because I'm inclined to the Brahmins. And the Brahmins are best of all. Prabhupada's commentary. In this verse, Brahmins are given a position superior to that of the Supreme Lord. The idea is that the government should be conducted under the guidance of the Brahmins. Although Rishabhdev recommended his eldest son, Bharat, as emperor of the earth, he still had to follow the instructions of the Brahmins in order to govern the world perfectly. The Lord is worshipped as Brahmanya Deva. The Lord is very fond of devotees, or Brahmins. This does not refer to so-called caste Brahmins, but to qualified Brahmins. A Brahmin should be qualified with the 8 qualities mentioned in text 24, such as Sama, Dhamma, Satya, Titiksha. The Brahmins should always be worshipped, and under their guidance the ruler should discharge his duty and rule the citizens. Unfortunately, in this age of Kali, the executive is not selected by very intelligent people, nor is he guided by qualified Brahmins. Consequently, chaos results. The mass of people should be educated in Krishna consciousness so that according to the democratic process, they can select a first-class devotee like Bharad Maharaj to lead the government. If the head of the state is headed by qualified Brahmins, everything's completely perfect. In this verse, the evolutionary process is indirectly mentioned. The modern theory that life evolves from matter is to some extent supported in this verse because it's stated Bhuteshu Viru Vaya. That is, the living entities evolve from vegetables, grass, plants, and trees, which are superior to dull matter. In other words, matter also has the potency to manifest living entities in the form of vegetables. In this sense, life comes out of matter, but matter also comes out of life. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavam atak sarvam pravartate, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything comes from me. I don't get that, but Prabhupada. Modern theory that life evolves from matter is to some extent supported in this verse. That is, the living entities evolve from vegetables, grass, plants, and trees, which are superior to dull matter. In other words, matter also has the potency to manifest living entities in the form of vegetables. In this sense, life comes out of matter. But matter also comes out of life. Krishna. That's very unusual, because usually what we hear is matter does not produce life. The scientists are wrong. They cannot combine chemicals to produce life. So what is being said here? The safe ground is that Krishna is the source of both, spirit and matter. So that's the high ground. How things are manifesting from there, some details there of what Srila Prabhupada is saying there. Another way I've heard that discussed is that it's not exactly the forms themselves that are evolving, but the forms are always there, but it's the living entity who is, by their mentality and their consciousness, qualifying for particular forms. So what's evolving is the consciousness of the living entity in his cycle of birth and death, traveling through the different species. So we're going to, that's really something matter also has the potency to manifest living entities in the form of vegetables. We're just going to put that on hold. Sometimes we might run across some statements, actually a lot of times, run across statements that just like, what? And the best thing to do with it that I've found is just put it on hold. Have like a little mental compartment where there's a file of, strange but true, or I do not understand this folder in there, and just put it in there. And then in the course of hearing and reading, after a while it becomes clear what it is. You get the realization. And it can take a while. It can take years. But that's the best thing to do with these. And to not let something that you don't understand, like for me, if I don't understand that, what Prabhupada's saying there, life comes out of matter, that matter can produce vegetables, I'm not understanding that statement, but I'm not going to let it interfere with hearing other things that do make sense to me, that I can conceive. So that's what I do with those unusual things like that. But the safe ground the high ground is that Krishna is the source of both spirit and matter. So, and Krishna can do anything. So maybe the problem with the scientific approach to life coming from matter is that ignoring the source of both. In other words, thinking that somehow matter is supreme, and not seeing, to go back one step further and deeper in the realization that no, matter isn't the ultimate source. Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate source. So that may be why the emphasis is that life doesn't come from matter. Well, it doesn't. Ultimately, it doesn't. Because matter comes from spirit, ultimately. So, something interesting going on there. I'm going to just put it in the, later file. Later. Prabhupada's commentary continued. There are two energies, material and spiritual. And both originally come from Krishna. Okay, so Prabhupada's talking about this same subject. Krishna is the supreme living being. Although it may be said that in the material world a living force is generated from matter, it must be admitted that originally matter is generated from the supreme living being. Yeah. Nityo nityanam, chaitanas chaitananam. The conclusion is that everything, both material and spiritual, is generated from the Supreme Being. From the evolutionary point of view, perfection is reached when the living entity attains the platform of a Brahman. A Brahman is a worshipper of the Supreme Brahman, and the Supreme Brahman worships the Brahman. In other words, the devotee is subordinate to the Supreme Lord, and the Lord is inclined to see the satisfaction of his devotee. A Brahman is called Dvijadeva, and the Lord is called Dvijadeva Deva. He is the Lord of Brahmins. The evolutionary process is also explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, wherein it is said that there are two types of living entities, moving and non-moving. Among moving entities, there are birds, beasts, aquatics, human beings, so on. Of these, human beings are supposed to be the best, but they are few. Of these small numbers of human beings, there are many low-class human beings like lechas, pulindas, bodhas, and sabaras. The human being elevated enough to accept Vedic principles is superior. Among those who accept the Vedic principles, generally known as Varnashram, presently known as the Hindu system, few actually follow these principles. Of those who actually follow the Vedic principles, most perform fruitive activity or pious activity for elevation to a high position. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaya. Out of many attached to fruitive activity, one may be a jnani, that is, one philosophically inclined, superior to the karmis. And out of many jnanis, one may be liberated from material bondage. And of many millions of liberated jnanis, one may become a devotee of Krishna. Puts things in perspective. Not easily attained devotion to the Lord. That's the real significance of evolution, however you understand it. Text 23. O respectful Brahmins, as far as I am concerned, no one is equal or superior to the Brahmins in this world. I do not find anyone comparable to them. When people know my motive after performing rituals according to the Vedic principles, they offer food to me with faith and love through the mouth of a Brahmin. When food is thus offered unto me, I eat it with full satisfaction. Indeed, I derive more pleasure from food offered in that way than from food offered in the sacrificial fire. Yes. According to the Vedic system, after the sacrificial ceremony, the Brahmins are invited to eat the remnants of the offered food. When the Brahmins eat the food, it is to be considered directly eaten by the Supreme Lord. Thus, no one can be compared to qualified Brahmins. The perfection of evolution is to be situated on the Brahminical platform. Any civilization not based on Brahminical culture or guided by Brahmins is certainly a condemned civilization. Presently, human civilization is based on sense gratification, and consequently, more and more people are becoming addicted to different types of things. No one respects Brahminical culture. Demonic civilization is attached to ugrakarma, horrible activities, and big industries are created to satisfy unfathomable lusty desires. Consequently, the people greatly harassed by governmental taxation. The people are irreligious, do not perform the sacrifices recommended in Bhagavad Gita. Yagnat bhavati parjanya. By the performance of sacrifice, clouds form and rain falls. Due to sufficient rainfall, there's sufficient production of food. Guided by the Brahmins, society should follow the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Then people will become very happy. Anad bhavanti bhutani. When animals and man are sufficiently fed with grains, they become stronger. Their hearts become tranquil and their brains peaceful. They can then advance in spiritual life, life's ultimate destination. So Prabhupada's discussing, and Shabdev is pointing out how important Brahminical culture is. So this is one of the ashrams in the society, Varnashram society, is the Brahmin. And the Brahmin that performs the spiritual and religious functions for the society. The Kshatriya manages and rules, but he should take guidance from the Brahmins how to rule Krishna consciously. And then there's the Vaishyas. They're engaged in business and in farming, animal protection, and they're growing the foodstuffs. And then the Sudras, the helping hands that assist the other members of society in their varnas. So there's student life, and there's married life, and then there's semi-retired life, and then there's sannyas. Those are the ashrams. And then the varnas are Sudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahmin. So Brahmin's like the head of society, and the Kshatriyas are like the arms, powerful arms of society for defense and management. And then the Vaishyas, they're like the belly. So it's like a social body. It's like a body. Society is like a body. The head is the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas are the arms, Vaishyas are the belly, and the Sudras are the legs. It's all important because it's one body. We're all in this together, so to speak. And so the Brahmins are very much dear to the Lord because they guide everything toward Him. They guide all the other activities of the social body. They're the head of the social body, and they guide the whole social mass toward Godhead, toward Krishna. That's what they're meant to do. That's their service. So they're very dear to the Lord. And he's saying here that feeding a Brahmin, offering food to the Brahmin, pleases him more than offering into a sacrificial fire. And that he himself personally eats through the mouth of a Brahmin, taking the foodstuff that's offered. So that's how it works. Text 24. Srila Prabhupada very much wanted Brahminical class. And from what's being discussed here, we can see why. Because they will be able to guide the rest of society toward Krishna. It's not just by performing one's work perfectly that one reaches the goal of life, but it's by performing work in Krishna consciousness. That verse in the Gita, it's better to perform one's own work, even if done imperfectly, than to follow another's path, follow another's path is dangerous. So even if one performs their own work imperfectly, Krishna says it's better to do that. So that's following Krishna's instruction. And by following Krishna's instruction, pleasing Krishna. And that's the whole idea of Varnashram Dharma, is to guide everyone, everything, the whole society toward Krishna consciousness. So what good is it if someone does their work perfectly but they're not Krishna conscious? I think Lord Jesus said a similar thing about what good is it, what profiteth a man if he gains the world but loses his soul. So the Brahmins are there to guide the society in the right direction. Text 24. The Vedas are my eternal transcendental sound incarnation. Therefore the Vedas are Sabda Brahman. In this world, the Brahmins thoroughly study all the Vedas. Because they assimilate the Vedic conclusions, they're also to be considered the Vedas personified. The Brahmins are situated in the supreme transcendental mode of nature, Sattva Gun. Because of this, they're fixed in mind, control, Sama, sense control, Dhamma, and truthfulness, Satya. They describe the Vedas in their original sense, and out of mercy, Anugraha, they preach the purpose of the Vedas to all conditioned souls. They practice penance, tapasya, and tolerance, tiksha, and they realize the position of the living entity and the Supreme Lord, Anubhav. These are the 8 qualifications of the Brahmins. Therefore, among all living entities, no one is superior to the Brahmins. The Lord is saying here that the Vedas are my incarnation in sound. And the Brahmins are associating with that incarnation of the Lord, the Vedas, by studying, chanting, and assimilating Vedic conclusions. And then they're considered to be the Vedas personified. That's how it works. The book Veda, so to speak, sound incarnation Veda, and then the person Veda. And that's the Brahmins, the personification of the Vedas. The Vedas personified. That's what real Brahmins are the Vedas personified, because they've assimilated the Vedic conclusions. That may have been even more obvious in earlier times when the Vedas were passed down simply by oral reception. This writing things and printing things is fairly new, fairly modern, a few hundred years. But for thousands and thousands of generations, the Vedas were transmitted orally. So from person to person, the Vedic conclusions, the Vedic teachings. So it would be a little more obvious, perhaps, that a Brahmin was the Vedas personified, because he had assimilated those transcendental sounds, incarnation of the Lord. Prabhupada's commentary. This is a true description of a Brahmin. A Brahmin is one who has assimilated Vedic conclusions by practicing mind and sense control. He speaks the true version of all the Vedas. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa sarvam ameva vedya. By studying all the Vedas, one should come to understand the transcendental position of Lord Sri Krishna. One who actually assimilated the essence of Vedas can preach the truth. He's compassionate to conditioned souls who are suffering the threefold miseries of this conditional world due to their not being Krishna conscious. A Brahmin should take pity on the people and preach Krishna consciousness in order to elevate them. Sri Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personally descends into this universe from the spiritual kingdom to teach conditioned souls about the values of spiritual life. He tries to induce them to surrender unto him. Similarly, the Brahmins do the same thing. After assimilating the Vedic instructions, they assist the Supreme Lord in his endeavor to deliver conditioned souls. The Brahmins are very dear to the Supreme Lord due to their high sattva-gun qualities, and they also engage in welfare activities for all conditioned souls in the material world. Text 25. I am fully opulent, almighty, and superior to Lord Brahma Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. I'm also the bestower of all happiness obtained in the heavenly kingdom and by liberation. Nonetheless, the Brahmins do not seek material comforts from me. They're very pure, do not want to possess anything. They simply engage in my devotional service. What is the need of their asking for material benefits from anyone else? The perfect Brahminical qualification is stated herein. The Brahmins are always engaged in devotional service of the Lord. Consequently, they have no material wants, nor do they possess material things. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains the position of pure Vaishnavas who are anxious to return home back to Godhead. Those who actually want to return back to Godhead are niskinchana, that is, they have no desire for material comfort. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises material opulence and sense gratification through the association of women are more dangerous than poison. Brahmins who are pure Vaishnavas always engage in the Lord's devotion, Lord's service, and are devoid of any desire for material gain. The Brahmins do not worship demigods like Lord Brahma, Indra, or Lord Shiva for any material comfort. They do not even ask the Supreme Lord for material profit. Therefore, it is concluded that the Brahmins are the supreme living entities of this world. Sri Kapila Dev also confirms this in Srimad Bhagavatam. The Brahmins are always dedicated to the Lord's service with their bodies, words, and mind. There is no better person than a Brahmin who thus engages himself and dedicates himself to the Supreme Lord. If we want to know what a Brahmin is, this is what a Brahmin is. Text 26. My dear sons, you should not envy any living entity, be he moving or non-moving, knowing that I am situated in them. You should offer respect to all of them at every moment. In this way, you offer respect to me. In this verse, the word vivikta drigbi, meaning without envy, is used. All living entities are the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita. The Lord is situated in this universe as Garbhodakshay Vishnu and Kshirodakshay Vishnu. He is also situated within every atom. According to the Vedic statement, Ishyavasham idam sarvam. The Supreme Lord is situated everywhere, and wherever he is situated is his temple. We even offer respects to a temple from a distant place, and all living entities should similarly be offered respect. This is different from the theory of pantheism, which holds that everything is God. Everything has a relationship with God, because God is situated everywhere. We should not make any particular distinction between the poor and the rich, like the foolish worshippers of Daridra Narayan. Narayan is present in the rich as well as the poor, One should not simply think Narayan is situated among the poor. He's everywhere. An advanced devotee will offer respects to everyone, even to cats and dogs. Vidya vinaya sampane brahmaniga vihastini sunichaiva swapakecha pandita samadarshana. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. This samadarshana, equal vision, should not be mistaken to mean that the individual is the same as the Supreme Lord. They're always distinct. Every individual person is different from the Supreme Lord. It's a mistake to equate the individual living entity with the Supreme Lord on the plea of Viviktadrik Samadrik. The Lord is always in an exalted position, even though he agrees to live everywhere. Srila Madhvacharya, quoting Padma Purāṇa, states, "One who has clear vision, who is devoid of envy, can see the Supreme Lord is separate from all living entities, although he is situated in every living entity." Madhvacharya further quotes from Padma Purāṇa, "One who sees the living entity and the Supreme Lord as always distinct is very dear to the Lord." Padma Purāṇa also states, "One who preaches that the living entities are separate from the Supreme Lord is very dear to Lord Vishnu." So that's maybe a good place to stop. And so it's still early, and it's be a good chance to practice honoring all living entities today as the day's activities begin. And most of the living entities are simply engaged in a hard struggle for existence. Dog eat dog, rat race. Get out of my way, you're in my way. So it will be, if we keep this program running in the background, like on the computer, you have one main screen up and running, and then a lot of times in the background there's some other program running. So even though up on the screen, you've got to deal with the rat race, in the background, if we keep this other program running, this Krishna consciousness running in the background, then be able to deal with things nicely. And have to see, what this Krishna consciousness mission is, Lord Chaitanya's mission is. Krishna says, whenever there's a decline in religious practice, in irreligion, I descend myself to do away with the troublemakers and to reinstate the pious, deliver the pious. So that's this Krishna consciousness movement. The Lord is incarnated in the Hare Krishna movement, specifically in his sound incarnation, the Hare Krishna mantra. So and keep the beauty of that, the mercy of that, the magnitude of that, and feel so much gratitude to be able to have come in contact, and to whatever degree can surrender. It's easy, you just chant Hare Krishna, that's all that's really being asked, but tend to complicate things, and working off past karma. So gradual process for most of us. More gradual for most of us than some. But whatever is done in devotional service is never lost, and it accumulates. So one penny, eventually $1,000,000. So it's just a way to think about it, accumulating. Doesn't have anything to do with money. So, Hare Krishna.